The reality is he might not ever fight again. Like, who knows? Like, if he has surgery on his eye and it doesn't go well and he can't see out of the eye, apparently he's still fucked up in his right eye. There's some tendon damage or something. And, you know, eyes are so tricky. You never know. Like, unless you're a fucking complete psychopath like Michael Bisping, who fought 11 fights in the UFC.
The reality is, he might never fight again. Who knows? If he has surgery on his eye and it doesn't go well, and he loses vision in that eye, apparently, his right eye is still _ up. There's some tendon damage or something. And eyes are so tricky, you never really know. Well, unless you're a total _ psychopath like Michael Bisping, who fought 11 UFC fights blind in one eye.
And your eyeball to be stronger. It is what it is. You've protection here and here, but he obviously got no protection because the fingers were straight in. The fight should have been stopped. He couldn't see. It was a foul. He couldn't see. Then you can't fight. You know, if he'd have got knocked out with a head kick next, then it would have been worse. I don't know. And then he said, sometimes when your eyes here like that, it can become displaced and stay there. And they did a few tests on that and they said it doesn't seem like that. And his vision on the eye that's the best eye, his eye wasn't following properly, so the muscles weren't working strong enough to go this way. This one just wasn't working that good at all. So we've got to have additional tests further this week, and Moyes is sorting the tests out for us, and he's got to have a seat.
It looked really bad. He said, you can't train your eyeball to be stronger. It is what it is. There's protection here and here, music, but obviously, he had no protection because the fingers went straight into the eye. The fight should have been stopped. He couldn't see. It was a foul. He couldn't see, so he couldn't fight. You know, if he had gotten knocked out with a head kick next, it would have been worse. I don't know. Then he added, sometimes when your eye is like that, it can become music, displaced and stay there. They ran some tests and said it didn't seem like that. His vision in that eye, which is his better eye, wasn't following properly. The muscles weren't working strong enough to move it that way. That eye just wasn't working well at all. So, more tests are planned for this week, with Moyes arranging them. He'll also need a CT scan.
Just spoke to Pat Barry, who's in the hospital right now. You know, yesterday we spoke about Rose Namajunas talking to the fans in a very emotional state. It was heartbreaking to see. Remember that video? She's like openly sobbing. And shout out to the fans who were there to console her, to make her feel better. It was part heartbreaking and part beautiful to watch in a way. Anyway, right now as we speak, Rose is undergoing eye surgery, believe it or not. She was poked multiple times in the eye. They actually just sent me a photo of one of said pokes. Here's one photo that we have. There you go. And yeah, I mean, again, this is the thing with these. Like, you sit at home, you're like, okay, suck it up. You know, Tom Aspinall, suck it up. Well, guess what? Here's a photo of Rose heading into surgery as we speak. You can see her eye, and you're about to see more. And he tells me that she has, I'm going to try to get this right, a canalicular laceration, which is a break in the tear drainage system.
It's effective, it's legal, and it's taught at every level of the sport. But as athletes become faster, sharper, and more aggressive, the margin for error shrinks dramatically. As exchanges speed up, eye contact becomes almost unavoidable. And when it happens, the system rarely responds with real urgency. A referee gives a warning. The fight goes on. The crowd moves forward.
All right is that it works. So the best thing you can do is like keep your head in the game, and I'll do everything I can to manage.
All that training for that? Yeah. Don't worry about it.
It's gonna be okay, mate.
What is he doing? The left one was really deep. The left one was really deep. Yeah, sorry, but twice before he got one for it.
Mike Bisping, he lost his eye. It's just a horrendous thing to think as a parent, really. And I know what it's like these days with people saying what they want, but if it's just your son, then they could lose an eye and their health, and they've got children to look after. You know, something needs doing about it.
No.
Yeah, that's right.
But the damage often doesn't fully surface until weeks or even months later, when fighters are forced into extended recoveries and divisions quietly come to a halt. In Tom Aspinall's case, the injury was serious enough that the fight could not continue, instantly freezing the heavyweight picture and creating uncertainty at the very top of the division. In Paddy Pimblett's case, the fight went on, but the consequences are now beginning to emerge, with his momentum potentially stalled at a critical point in his career. Different situations, the same underlying problem. Joe Rogan has never framed this as an issue of blaming fighters. His criticism has consistently focused on the rules and the equipment. He has repeatedly pointed to glove design as a major factor, arguing that gloves which naturally curl the fingers downward could greatly reduce accidental eye contact without fundamentally changing the sport.
The UFC gloves, the way they are right now, why don't they cover the fingers? Why don't you have a glove where you have the padding on the knuckle, but that you just have a layer of leather that goes over the fingers and goes behind the hand like this?
Almost like Pride gloves a little bit, but over the fingers.
But covering the fingertips. The problem is the fingertips going into the eyes. Like every time you see a poke, it's like one finger going into the eyeball. But if you have it covered up, it would be different. Like it wouldn't be one poke going straight through. It'd be a layer of leather.
But I'll tell you this, I've been fighting for 25 years. I've never poked anybody in the eye, not even in training.
Eye pokes are probably the worst. I think when a guy gets eye poked, I think it should be a 1-point deduction no matter what. Because you can't see. I would say that's probably the worst out of all these things. You can speak to this.
Yeah,
poked in the eye.
I know I've been poked in the eye, but I've poked a few dudes in the eye. I'm trying to stay out of this. I'm just sitting here trying to figure out how I approach this. You're going to come to me. I was hoping you would look at Annick. You decided to ask me.
Or slowing the action. Other combat sports have adjusted their equipment as athletes evolved. MMA, for the most part, has not. And that's where frustration begins to shift into something more serious. When Dana White was questioned about the issue, his response struck many fans as blunt and dismissive, showing little urgency and offering no clear sign that meaningful changes were being explored. For a growing section of the MMA audience, it felt as though fighter safety was being treated as a secondary concern rather than a core responsibility. That perception is dangerous, because when fighters lose months or even years to eye injuries, the damage extends far beyond physical recovery. Careers lose momentum. Rankings stall, title pictures fall apart, and fans gradually begin to lose confidence in how the sport is being run. There is also a deeper conversation happening beneath the surface. Some fans believe extended hands are sometimes used deliberately to gain an advantage, knowing enforcement is inconsistent and serious punishment is unlikely to change the result of a fight.
Aspinall's eye. Apparently he's going in for a second surgery or just had it, and by surgery I mean injections. I have no idea. Get a quote from him. God fucking forbid I say something about it. Go ahead.
Do you have any updates about the eye of Tom Aspinall? And is there a rematch in the works?
Oh, Jesus. Don't let me talk about Tom Aspinall's eye. Apparently he's going in for a second surgery or just had it, and by surgery I mean injections. I have no idea. Get a quote from him. God forbid I say something about it. Go ahead.
Weird, Dana.
Jeez.
How close did you think you were to
Here's your quote. Catching strays, aren't I? Catching strays in my own living room on a Sunday morning.
Would it be interesting if Tom came out and said, no, I'm not going to rematch him. He's a cheater. Why would I rematch a guy that already cheated, that violated not one of my eyes, but both? I gave him his chance. He chose to cheat. I'm going to move on. If Tom took that stance, which he's not going to do, I'm saying, but for fun, I think he'd have a lot of people that supported him. For some reason, Surreal has come out of this thing with his hands clean. He's the one that did the poking.
To do something about these eye pokes. The rule is you got to have your hands like this, but you can still have your fingers out straight. You can't do that. You can do that. That's the stupidest rule I've ever seen in my life. Make a fist. Simple as that. You're throwing punches, and yeah, you got to parry shots, but you just got to unbend your fingers. It's really not that hard. This is a stupid rule.
Only Tom knows what happened. Could he see? Couldn't he see? Could he continue? I can't make people fight if they feel they've been injured. After the Jones fight, a lot of people wrote Cyril Gane off. He looked damn good tonight. I mean, he had Tom bloodied up, and Tom didn't want to continue in the fight. The rematch is...
Not because the sport promotes cheating, but because the system silently rewards risk without offering real deterrence. Whether that perception is fair or not, the fact that it exists at all should be taken as a warning. Joe Rogan's message has stayed consistent. Fighters have evolved. The pace is faster. The margins are thinner than ever before. And if the rules and equipment fail to evolve alongside them, the sport will continue to lose talent in ways that never appear on highlight reels. That is the real danger. Not one bad fight or a single controversial moment, but a gradual erosion where fighters lose irreplaceable time, divisions lose credibility, and the UFC is left reacting instead of leading. If nothing changes, this issue doesn't disappear, it grows. And when the consequences finally arrive, the question won't be whether eye pokes are part of MMA, but why the UFC ignored a solvable problem for so long and allowed the